Hi. Good to see you. An old woman always appeared with bruises. Suspecting her granddaughter decided to install a security camera and became desperate when she saw the images. Patricia entered her grandmother's house, immediately noticing the air of tension in the atmosphere. Doña Rosa was sitting in the rocking chair, her eyes fixed on a distant point, as if she were lost in her own thoughts. Patricia approached slowly with her heart clenched as she saw the bruises visible on her grandmother's arm, the purple bruises and the red marks appearing. They stood out against Rosa's light brown skin like painful signs that something was wrong. Grandma, what happened? Patricia's voice came out soft but firm, full of concern. She knelt next to the chair, taking her grandmother's hand carefully, feeling a mixture of anger and sadness while she waited for the answer. Doña Rosa avoided her granddaughter's gaze, forcing a smile that did not reach her eyes. Nothing, dear. Nothing is happening. Don't worry. I think I hurt myself accidentally. The answer was quick, almost rehearsed, and Patricia noticed the hesitation in her grandmother's voice. She knew Rosa well. The woman who raised her after her mother's death didn't tend to get hurt so easily. Patricia felt a knot in her chest as she realized that something was very wrong. Grandma, are you hiding? Patricia insisted something. Looking for her grandmother's eyes, the silence that followed was heavy, almost palpable. Doña Rosa finally looked at her granddaughter, but her eyes were full of sadness and fear. No, I'm not hiding anything. Don't worry, my daughter. We old people sometimes find ourselves. We hurt, and that's normal. Don't worry. But Patricia knew that that wasn't normal. She could see the anguish in her grandmother's eyes. Even when she tried to hide it, Patricia couldn't hide her frustration. Grandmother, please trust me. I just want to help. These bruises don't look like accidental. Please tell me the truth. Doña Rosa looked away again, and Patricia felt her heart break when she saw her grandmother's vulnerability. She knew that Rosa was hiding something, but she did not want to put too much pressure on her. Doña Maria. Doña Rosa's caregiver entered the room at that moment, interrupting the tense silence. Good afternoon, Patricia. Everything is fine here. Patricia looked at Doña Maria, feeling a wave of distrust. She had always liked Doña Maria, but recent events had left her paranoid.
Doña María.
You have noted these bruises on my grandmother. Do you know where they could have come from? Doña Maria seemed surprised by the question. Yes, I noticed the bruises. But Doña Rosa said that it was nothing serious. She had hurt herself. I asked several times, but she always answered the same thing. Doña Maria's expression was one of genuine concern, but Patricia couldn't help but feel distrustful. Would Doña Maria be hiding something? With a sigh, Patricia decided that she needed to take a more drastic measure. Thank you, Doña Maria. I just want to make sure that my grandma. Be sure, the caregiver nodded, seeming understanding. But Patricia couldn't shake the feeling that something very serious was happening. Patricia thought, I can't ignore this. Something else is happening. And I need to discover what is that night. Patricia was determined to protect her grandmother. She took out a small security camera that she had bought some time ago, thinking of using it for an investigative journalism project. With trembling hands, she installed the camera discreetly in Doña Rosa's room, choosing an angle that would capture the entire area. Don't worry, Grandma, this is for your protection. I'm going to find out what's going on here, he thought as he placed the camera in a strategic place. Patricia felt a mix of fear and determination. I need to protect my grandmother. She is all I have left, she said out loud, trying to convince herself that she was doing the right thing. I hope this reveals the truth, whatever it is. Patricia finished setting up the camera and went back to the living room, finding Doña Rosa still sitting in the rocking chair with her eyes closed. Grandmother, it's already late. You better go to sleep. Doña Rosa opened her eyes slowly as if waking up from a distant dream. She nodded slowly and got up with the help of Patricia supporting her and her granddaughter's arm as they walked to the room. Patricia felt an enormous weight on her shoulders. I love you, Grandma. I promise. I will find out what is happening, and I will protect you, thought Patricia. Watched her grandmother settle into the bed before leaving the room, determined not to rest until the truth came to light. One day, Patricia was at her desk in the newspaper office, surrounded by stacks of documents and notes. The light from the computer reflected on her face, highlighting her features. Concentrated, I chose this profession because I believe in the truth, she thought while reviewing an article about political corruption. The desire to discover the truth always drove Patricia. Each new information that emerged in her investigations was like a piece of a puzzle that she needed to put together. Patricia remembered her childhood moments, precious times with her grandmother Rosa. She was everything to me after my mother died, she reflected while looking at an old photo of both of us. Grandmother always supported me, even in the most difficult moments. The image of Rosa with her warm smile and comforting hug was a constant reminder of why she never gave up no matter how difficult the situation became. Memories of her childhood invaded her mind. Patricia saw herself as a little girl holding hands as Rosa in the park. Grandma taught me to be strong and independent, she thought, feeling a wave of gratitude. She remembered the nights when Rosa stayed up late helping her with her homework, always encouraging her love of knowledge. And just as the phone on Patricia's table rang, interrupting her thoughts, it was a source with new information about an ongoing investigation. "Hello, this is Patricia," answered her voice, firm and professional, as she listened to the person on the other end of the line, taking quick notes, absorbing each detail. The truth must be revealed no matter what the cost, she thought, feeling the determination grow within her. Patricia always felt a deep connection with her grandmother. Every success of mine is a tribute to her sacrifice, she thought. As she reviewed her notes, she knew that the strength and resilience she showed in her career came directly from Rosa's example. She would not be here without her, she reflected with a grateful smile on another memory. Patricia remembered a rainy night when she was years old. She was afraid of thunder, and Rosa hugged her, saying, "Don't be afraid, dear. I'm here with you." That memory brought tears to Patricia's eyes. Grandma was always my rock, my safe harbor, she thought, feeling the urgency to protect Rosa. Growing more and more, the office atmosphere was frenetic, but Patricia stood out for her calm and concentration. Her colleagues were often inspired by her determination. "She is relentless when it comes to discovering the truth." She overheard a colleague comment that it made her smile, because she knew that her work was a reflection of the values that Rosa taught her. Patricia looked at the clock. "It's time to go home," she thought, feeling slightly tired, but before leaving, she reviewed her notes one last time on the investigation of the bruises on her. "Grandma, I'm going to find out who is hurting Grandma," she promised herself, closing the notebook with a sigh of determination as she left the office. Patricia thought about the importance of her work. "Every story I reveal is a victory for the truth," she reflected, "and that determination I owed that will to make a difference to Rosa. Everything I do is for her and for all those who need justice," he concluded, walking towards his house. Meanwhile, Rosa was sitting in the living room, the aroma of tea chamomile filling the air. He looked around, feeling a mixture of pride and sadness. "This house is full of memories," he thought as he gently caressed his still sore arm. "Each corner, each object told a story of his life and his family. I have so much love for this house. Everything I built here." Rosa had always been a strong woman. She remembered the difficult times after the death of her daughter Laura. "Losing Laura was the worst moment of my life," she thought, feeling the tears build up. "But I had Patricia. She gave the strength to continue raising her granddaughter alone. It had been a challenge, but Rosa never gave up. She would do anything for her." Rosa remembered little Patricia running through the garden. She was always so full of life, she reflected with a smile. Watching her grow and overcome challenges made everything more bearable. Rosa knew that her love and sacrifice had helped shape the strong woman she had become in recent times. However, Rosa felt more vulnerable. "I'm getting old," she thought with a sigh. The bruises on her arm, they were a constant reminder of her recent fragility. "I can't let Patricia discover what is happening," she thought, trying to hide her worry. She didn't want to overload her granddaughter with more problems. The clock was marking the end of the day, and Rosa knew it was time to go to bed. "I need to rest," she said to herself, getting up with effort. Each movement was a reminder of her age and the difficulties she was facing. "But I will not give up. Patricia needs me as much as I need her." As she entered her room, Rosa looked around without imagining that there was a hidden camera there. "She is so worried about me," she thought with a sad smile, without knowing that Patricia had installed the camera to discover the truth. "I understand her, but I need to protect her from the truth." Rosa knew that the situation was becoming unsustainable, but she did not want to cause more suffering to her granddaughter lying in bed. Rosa reflected on her life. "I did the best I could," she thought, feeling a mixture of pride and regret. I hope Patricia understands my reasons. She closed her eyes, letting the memories of a life full of love and sacrifice. I love her so much, she thought as sleep enveloped her. Patricia entered the room to check on Rosa. "Grandma, how are you feeling?" she asked, sitting next to the bed. Rosa opened her eyes and smiled, trying to hide her worry. "I'm fine, dear, just a little tired." Patricia held her grandmother's hand, feeling her fragility. "I'm going to find out what's happening," she thought while Rosa was sleeping. Patricia left the room silently. "I need to solve this," she thought with a tight heart. Every day that passed, I felt the urgency to protect her grandmother increase. "I am going to discover the truth no matter what the cost." And with that determination, Patricia went to her own room ready to continue the search for the truth the next day. For several days, he reviewed the security cameras but found nothing about what could be happening. He thought about Doña Rosa's life and the difficulties she had faced. One day, Rosa was sitting in the rocking chair, the crackling of the fireplace filling the room. With a comforting warmth, her thoughts traveled to the past, remembering the first years of her youth. "I was widowed, so young," she thought, feeling a lump in her throat, remembering the husband she tragically lost. "I had to be strong to raise Laura alone. Every day was a struggle, but Rosa, he always found strength in the love he felt for his children. They were his reason for living, his greatest treasure." He remembered Laura and Leopoldo when they were little, running around the yard with happy laughter. "My children were always the light of my life," she reflected as a nostalgic smile appeared on her face. "Despite all the difficulties, we managed to be happy." Life had not been easy, but the moments of happiness compensated for every sacrifice. Rosa worked hard, often doing double shifts to make sure that nothing was missing his children. The years passed quickly and Laura and Leopoldo grew up. Laura was always the most sensitive, he thought, lovingly remembering his daughter. She had a huge heart. Laura had a temporary relationship, but it ended. Pregnant with Patricia. "When Laura told me she was pregnant, I felt a mixture of worry and joy," Rosa remembered. "I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to help her. Unfortunately, life had other plans. Laura had health complications and passed away when Patricia was only years old. Losing Laura, it was the deepest pain I have ever felt," Rosa thought, feeling the tears running down her cheeks. But she had to be strong for Patricia. Raising her granddaughter alone was an immense challenge, but Rosa never hesitated. Patricia needed her, and that gave her strength to continue. "I promised myself that I would do everything possible to protect and love my granddaughter." Leopoldo, on the other hand, distanced himself from the family after marrying early and having 2 children. "I always thought that Leopoldo needed space," Rosa reflected, "but I never imagined that the distance between them would become so far apart." It became a silent wound in Rosa's heart. However, she brought a new joy to Rosa's life. "My granddaughter is my reason for living," Rosa thought with a smile. "She gave me the strength to continue." She remembered when Patricia took her first steps, or when they both spent entire afternoons cooking together. Every laugh, every hug from Patricia reminded me that life still had a lot to offer. Rosa reflected. The difficulties kept appearing, but Rosa, I faced each one with courage and determination. I had to be a mother and father for Patricia, he thought, feeling the weight of the responsibilities he carried over the years, and I don't regret anything. Love he felt for his granddaughter was unconditional and motivated her to keep going despite all the challenges. Rosa remembered difficult moments like the days when money was scarce and she had to juggle to pay the bills. "I worked hard, but I always did it with love," she thought, because Patricia deserved the best. Every sacrifice was proof of the unbreakable love that Rosa felt for her granddaughter, and she knew that every effort was worth it even with all the difficulties. Rosa found joy in the little things. Watching Patricia grow up was a gift, she reflected. She became a strong and independent woman. She was proud of her granddaughter, who pursued a career in investigative journalism, always seeking the truth and helping others. "She inherited my determination," she thought, Rosa with a sparkle in her eyes, "and that fills me with pride." Back to present, Rosa looked at the photo of Laura and Patricia on the nightstand. "I did the best I could," thought, feeling at peace with her decisions, "and I know that Laura would be proud of Patricia, although the years had passed and the difficulties were many. Love and resilience." Rosa continued to guide her. "Life was hard, but love always kept us together," Serena concluded with a smile. One day, Patricia was sitting at the kitchen table with the laptop open in front of her. She had begun to review the recordings from the installed security camera. In Rosa's room, I hope to find something that explains the bruises, he thought while looking at the images. Initially, he didn't see anything suspicious. Rosa appeared sleeping or moving around the house in a routine manner. Patricia sighed in frustration. I can't give up now, she told herself, determined to continue the search. Each day that passed, the tension within Patricia increased. Looking at her grandmother with more detailed attention, noticing small details that did not catch her attention before, the grandmother seemed more tired than normal, she reflected. While she was watching Rosa make you in the kitchen, there is something wrong, but the uncertainty left her uneasy, and she knew she needed to discover the truth. Soon Patricia had begun to pay more attention to Rosa's daily routines. Every little gesture, each sigh of tiredness or pain now seemed like an important clue. Am I becoming paranoid? She asked herself, but quickly dismissed the doubt. No, something is happening here. The determination grew every day, driven by the deep love she felt for her grandmother. The lack of concrete evidence was beginning to weigh. About Patricia, and if I never find out what's happening, he thought, fighting frustration. He knew he needed patience, but every day without answers his anxiety increased. I can't leave Grandma in this situation was promised. Trying to stay calm, Patricia began to avoid unnecessary things, preferring to stay at home to monitor Rosa closely. I need to be here if something happens, she thought while canceling a meeting with friends. Her social life began to be affected by the obsession with discovering the truth. My friends will understand. Grandma is my priority. Some days Doña Rosa received visits from neighbors and friends, and Patricia began to wonder if someone outside the family could be involved. Maybe one of them didn't notice anything abnormal about the ladies, and if it's Maria who is hurting my grandmother. The caregiver had always been kind, but Patricia knew she couldn't rule anyone out. I need to consider all the possibilities, she decided. Even if that meant distrusting people close to her, the idea made her uncomfortable. But she knew she couldn't let her guard down. Days later, Patricia was reviewing the recordings again. It was morning and her mind was exhausted, but she remained firm. I need to find something, she thought, feeling the tiredness and regret in his eyes. Suddenly something in the images captured his attention. Leopoldo, his uncle, entered Rosa's room. Patricia felt her heart shoot. What are you doing here? She murmured, feeling a wave of shock. Patri watched as Leopoldo approached Rosa with a nausante. I can't believe what I'm seeing, she thought as tears began to run down her face. Leopoldo held Rosa by the arms, shaking him. How could you, Uncle? Leopoldo whispered, feeling the pain and betrayal take over her. The scene in the recordings carried out in a cruel way. Leopoldo forced Rosa to sign a document, but she resisted. What does he want her to sign? Patricia thought, feeling Rosa's desperation increase. With tears in her eyes, she refused to give in to her son's pressure. I'm not going to sign that, Patricia heard say to his grandmother with a weak but determined voice. Leopoldo began to get excited, the anger evident on his face. Are you going to sign, Mother? He shouted, shaking the paper in front of her. Rosa continued to refuse, and Patricia saw her uncle's frustration increase. Endo's control thought. Horrified, this is monstrous. Feeling the injustice of the situation, Patricia knew that she could not let this continue. Patricia continued watching, unable to take her eyes off. Leopoldo, now visibly enraged, raised his voice even more, signing this, and Rosa, crying, maintained her refusal, which only increased the anger of Leopoldo. This is unbearable, Patricia thought, feeling helpless in front of the images. Grandma doesn't deserve this. She knew she had to act quickly. I need to gather all the evidence, she thought as she put the images away. Recordings on a pen drive. The police need to see this. The urgency of the situation made them act quickly and precisely. I'm not going to let Leopoldo get away with this, she thought as she prepared to leave the house. Patricia went to her grandmother's room, and he looked at Doña Rosa. She was asleep, oblivious to the danger she was in. I'm going to protect you, Grandma, she thought, feeling a wave of love and sadness. You did so much for me. Now it's my turn to take care of you. Patricia reflected on Leopoldo. I hadn't seen my uncle for many years, she thought. Trying to process his presence in Rosa's house, I never imagined that he was coming here. The memory of the images filled her with anger. How could he do this? Patricia also began to think about Dona Maria. How is it possible that Maria did not notice what was happening? Passing the corroded doubt they grew. Uncle Leopoldo is not going to escape from this, she thought, feeling her blood boil. I am going to face him right now. Determined, she got into her car and drove towards Leopoldo's house. He is going to pay for what he did, he promised himself. Herself as Abby sped through the streets with determination burning in her heart. Patricia parked the car in front of Leopoldo's house with her heart pounding. She felt anger pulsating in her veins, but also an unwavering determination. She knocked hard on the door, anxiously waiting for his uncle appeared. Leopoldo opened the door with an expression of surprise that soon turned into disdain. Patricia, what are you doing here? He asked, trying to maintain his composure. Patricia entered without being guessed with her gaze fixed on Leopoldo. I know what you did to Grandma, she said with a firm voice full of emotion, and you're not going to get your way. Leopoldo tried to defend himself by raising his hands in a gesture of innocence. I didn't do anything. You don't know. What are you talking about? He stated, trying to remain calm, but Patricia did not allow herself to be intimidated. There is no use in denying. I have the recordings, he declared, feeling his fury growing. I installed a camera in Grandma's room and I saw everything. I saw you mistreating her and trying to force her to sign that document. Leopoldo's expression changed from surprise to anger. You have no right to do this, he shouted, taking a step towards Patricia, but she did not retreat. I have the right to protect grandmother, he responded with a firm and determined voice, and I will do it no matter what it takes. You're going to pay for what you did, Uncle Leopoldo. I won't let you hurt Grandma again. Leopoldo tried to change tactics by appealing to reason. Patricia, you're just exaggerating. I was trying to resolve things, he said, trying to seem calm. Mom is old and confused. I just wanted to make sure everything was in order. Patricia felt a wave of contempt at those words. Resolve things, she repeated in disbelief, forcing the grandmother to sign a document while she was mistreating her. That's not solving things. It's abuse. Patricia's anger was in a state. Critical point has always been selfish, Uncle Leopoldo continued with his voice trembling with emotion, always thinking only of you. But I will not let you continue with this. I will expose the truth, and I will make sure that you pay for everything. Leopoldo realized that his attempts to justify himself were failing, and he adopted a defensive stance. I have the evidence, Patricia stated, looking directly into Leopoldo's eyes. Expression, this will not stay like this, he threatened, but Patricia just shook her head. You will face justice. With those words he left and headed to the police station, feeling a relief mixed with adrenaline. Patricia entered the police station with the P-drive with the recordings were firm in her hand. She approached the counter feeling a mixture of nervousness and determination. I need to talk to someone about a case of abuse, she said with a firm voice despite the tremor. The receptionist led her to a police officer named Luis, who listened to her carefully. About my grandmother, Patricia explained, showing the flash drive. I have proof that my uncle is mistreating her. The police officer, Luis, examined the recordings. His expression became more and more serious. This is very serious, he said. Finally, we are going to start a formal investigation. Patricia immediately felt a wave of relief, but she knew the job wasn't done yet. Thank you, she responded, feeling gratitude mixed with concern for Rosa. I just want my grandmother to be safe. Patricia returned home with a heavy heart, knowing she would have a difficult conversation about in front of him. Upon entering, he found Rosa sitting in the living room, visibly affected. Grandmother, we need to talk. I know what Uncle Leopoldo did and I have already taken the appropriate measures. The police are investigating. Rosa began to cry, tears running silently across her wrinkled face. He wanted me to sign a document, she said, her voice breaking with emotion, so that the house would be left to her man. I didn't want it, but he threatened me. Patricia felt her heart tighten. Hearing the confession, I'm so scared, Patricia continued. Rosa, trembling, she didn't know what to do. Patricia hugged Rosa tightly, feeling her grandmother's pain and fear as if they were hers. We are in this together, Grandma, she said with a firm voice. You are not alone. You are protected with me, Rosa. She held her granddaughter, finding a little comfort in the warmth of the hug. Thank you, dear, she said with a weak but grateful voice. I don't know what I would do without you. After the conversation with Rosa, Patricia decided to confront Dona Maria. Dona Maria, how is it possible that she doesn't? Has she realized what was happening with the grandmother? Patricia questioned. her voice full of distrust. Maria, visibly uncomfortable, responded, "She really didn't know. Patricia was just doing my job." Patricia carefully observed the caregiver, looking for signs of lying. "It's hard to believe that I haven't noticed anything," she said. Feeling a wave of frustration during the investigation, the truth came to light. Maria was Leopoldo's accomplice. She knew everything. The police officer Luisa Patricia revealed that Leopoldo paid Maria not to say anything about the visits. And the threats. Patricia felt a mixture of anger and betrayal. How could she do this? She thought with a tight heart. We trusted her. She fired Maria immediately. She is fired, Maria said, she with a firm voice. I cannot allow someone who she betrayed our trust continue to take care of my grandmother. Maria left without saying a word, with shame evident on her face. Patricia felt relief mixed with sadness. Now I need to find someone we can trust. Patricia hired a new caregiver for Rosa, recommended by trusted friends. She will take good care of you, grandmother, Patricia said, trying to reassure Rosa. I checked all her references. We are in good hands. Rosa smiled slightly, still affected by what had happened, but confident in Rosa's judgment. Patricia, the police investigation moved quickly. Leopoldo was called to testify, and the evidence from the recordings weighed against him. Patricia accompanied every step of the process, determined to see justice done. He is not going to get his way, he thought as he watched the police gather more evidence. The grandmother will finally have peace. However, some strange things began to happen. Patricia began to notice strange movements around her since she reported Leopoldo. A feeling of being followed accompanied her wherever she went. Outside, I must be imagining things, he initially thought, trying to ward off the paranoia, but the evidence was undeniable. Maybe someone is trying to intimidate me, Patricia wondered, feeling her heart tighten. The threats began to arrive. At first, they were subtle, but soon, they became direct and terrifying. She withdraws the complaint against Leopoldo, or you will regret it, said one of the messages, making Patricia tremble. She knew she couldn't back down, but the fear of what could happen to Rosa increased every day. I need to protect, the grandmother thought with determination one night while reviewing documents on her laptop. Patricia noticed a car parked across the street with the lights off. This is no coincidence, she thought. Feeling a wave of panic, she decided to increase security at home by installing cameras and reinforcing the doors. Locks. I'm not going to let her intimidate us. With her firm look, Patricia sat with Rosa in the living room, trying to handle the situation without alarming Grandma. We need to be careful, she said, holding Rosa's hand firmly. Rosa looked at her, eyes full of worry. What is happening, dear? Asked, feeling the fear creep in. Patricia sighed, trying to find the right words. Someone is trying to intimidate, but we are going to be okay. I already took measures for our safety. Rosa nodded, trusting her granddaughter, but she couldn't hide the fear. What are they doing this? Patricia asked with a trembling voice. Patricia looked into her grandmother's eyes, trying to convey calm. Because they want her to withdraw the complaint against Uncle Leopoldo. But no, we are going to give in, she stated, determined. We are going to fight for justice. The following days were full of tension. Patricia was constantly alert, observing every movement around her. I'm not going to let them hurt us, she thought repeatedly. With determination growing, she began to plan safer routines for Rosa and for herself by avoiding going out alone and maintaining constant contact with trusted friends. One night, Patricia received a message that made her blood run cold. Withdraw the complaint, or something worse will happen, the message said, accompanied by a photo of his house taken up close. This is going too far, he thought, feeling a wave of anger and fear. He knew he needed to intensify security measures and involve the police even more. Patricia decided to visit the police station again, bringing the new evidence of the threats. They need to know that we are being pressured, she thought as she prepared to leave. When she arrived, she handed the messages and photos to the police officer, Luis, who was responsible for the case. Someone is trying to intimidate us into withdrawing the complaint against my uncle, he explained with a firm voice. Despite his nervousness, Luis looked at the evidence, his expression becoming more and more serious. We are going to increase surveillance around your house, he said, taking notes. Don't worry, Patricia. We will make sure that you and your grandmother are safe. Patricia felt a momentary relief, but she knew there was still a long road ahead. Thank you, she said, leaving the police station with renewed determination. Patricia decided to involve more trusted people in the situation. She met with close friends and family, Explaining what was happening and asking for help. We need eyes and ears everywhere, she explained while her friends listened to her sincerely. Anything suspicious, any strange movement, we need to know. The support network that formed around her gave her strength. The security measures at home were they intensified in addition to the cameras and reinforced locks. Patricia installed alarms and motion sensors. Every precaution is necessary, I thought while checking the systems. We cannot take risks. The determination to protect Rosa and herself was unwavering despite the constant fear. One day Patricia was at home still dealing with the stress of the threats when the phone rang. It was the policeman Luis, his voice go to the other end of the line. Patricia, I need you come to the police station as soon as possible. We have news about the case. Patricia's heart raced. I'm on my way, she responded, feeling a mix of anxiety and relief. She took her things and quickly left, her mind boiling with possible discoveries. When she arrived at the police station, Luis received her with a serious expression. Patricia, we made an important discovery. He began by leading her to a meeting room. We discovered who is behind the threats against you. And Doña Rosa. Patricia felt her stomach churn with nervousness. Who is it? She asked, eager for answers. Luis took a deep breath before answering. They are Leopoldo's 2 children, he revealed. They are deeply in debt, and together with Leopoldo they developed a diabolical plan to get Doña Rosa's house and sell it to pay their paternal debts. Wave of shock and anger. I can't believe it, she muttered, trying to process the information. So this whole persecution was orchestrated by them? Yes, Luis confirmed. We have enough evidence to prove that Leopoldo and his children were threatening her, trying to force you to withdraw the complaint and sign over the house. His name. Patricia felt a mixture of relief and indignation. They are going to pay for this, he said with a firm voice. I will not allow them to go unpunished. We are going to arrest Leopoldo and his children immediately, Luis said with a determined look. You did the right thing by coming to us, Patricia. Now we can make sure that you and your grandmother are safe. Patricia nodded, feeling a wave of gratitude and relief. Thank you, Luis said with an excited voice. Finally, this is going to end. While Luis coordinated the operation, Patricia, above all what they had gone through, all this pain and suffering, all because of their greed, she thought, feeling a lump in her throat. But the prospect of justice finally being done filled her with hope. We will make it, grandmother thought with a determined smile. Minutes later, Luis returned to the room. We are ready to act, he said. You can go home now, Patricia. We will take care of Patricia. She felt a weight leave her shoulders. I'm going to tell Grandma, she said, getting up. She needs to know that everything is going to be okay. Luis nodded. Good luck, Patricia, and do not hesitate to contact us if you need more help. Patricia returned home, feeling a lightness that she had not felt in weeks. When she entered, she found Rosa in the living room, visibly worried. Grandmother, I have good news, Patricia said, sitting next to her. The police discovered who was behind the threats. They were Uncle Leopoldo's children. Rosa was shocked. My grandchildren, asked in disbelief. But why are they in debt and together with Uncle Leopoldo? They wanted your house to sell it and pay their debts, Patricia explained. But the police are already acting. They are going to arrest them all. Rosa began to cry, but this time with relief. Thank God, she said, holding Patricia's hand. Finally, this is going to end the police operation. Quickly and efficiently, Leopoldo and his children were arrested and taken to the police station. Patricia followed the news on television, feeling deep satisfaction. They will finally pay for what they did, she thought with a smile of relief. Justice was done in prison. Leopoldo reflected on his decisions. How I got to this point, I was wondering, sitting in the cold cell. I knew that his greed had led him to ruin, but repentance came too late. Patricia visited him once just to look into the man's eyes. Man who had caused so much suffering, you destroyed our family, she said with a firm voice. Leopoldo couldn't hold her gaze. I'm sorry, he murmured, but Patricia knew those words wouldn't erase what he had done. Leopoldo's children faced their own battles in prison. Our father told us. Ruined, each one of them thought in their cell. They knew that their actions were unforgivable, but they also felt a deep bitterness for having blindly followed Leopold's plans. We should never have gotten involved in this, the man reflected. Older, feeling the weight of their decisions. Life in prison was hard, and they faced the consequences of their actions daily. Patricia, although relieved by justice, she felt the pain of family betrayal. They were part of our family, she thought while looking at old photos, but she knew she couldn't leave. That sadness consumed her. Rosa needed her, and now more than ever she had to be strong. I'm going to keep going for us, she decided with renewed determination. The presence of Pedro and Lucas in her life was a constant reminder that there was hope and love even in the most difficult circumstances. In the following days, Patricia and Rosa's life began to return to normal. The threats stopped, and the feeling of security filled the house again. "We did it, grandmother," said Patricia, hugging Rosa with strength. "They will not hurt us anymore." Rosa smiled, still excited. "Thank you, dear," she said, "for never giving up on me." Patricia knew that the road ahead would still have its challenges, but with Rosa by her side, she will. She felt ready to face anything. "We will continue forward," she thought, feeling the hope renewing together. The love and resilience that united them were stronger than any adversity. And that was all they needed to move forward with the certainty that the worst had passed. Months passed, and everything returned to normal. It was then that something new happened in the life of the grandmother and granddaughter. Patricia felt a new breath of life when she met Pedro, a dedicated young doctor who crossed her path in a way unexpected. "He is different," she thought as she prepared to present him to her grandmother. Rosa was in the kitchen preparing tea when Patricia entered with Pedro. "Grandmother, this is Pedro," said with a nervous smile. Rosa looked at him with curiosity, and after a moment of silence, she opened a smile welcoming. "Welcome, Pedro," she said, extending her hand. Pedro shook Rosa's hand with respect. "Very gladly, Mrs. Rosa. I have heard a lot about you," she said, feeling immediately at ease. Rosa laughed, her eyes shining with affection. "I hope that only good things," he responded, looking at Patricia with a knowing smile. "Pedro, sit down and have tea with us," Rosa invited, feeling a good energy in the air. While they talked, Patricia watched the interaction between Pedro and Rosa with relief and joy. She thought with a warm heart. Pedro told stories funny about her job, making Rosa laugh. "You have a good sense of humor," Pedro said. She liked it more and more. Young Patricia felt relieved. This is a good start, she thought, looking at her grandmother. So happy. As the months went by, the relationship between Patricia and Pedro grew stronger. "He is all I needed," Patricia reflected, feeling more and more in love. Pedro was always attentive and affectionate with both her and Rosa. "Patricia, you have found a good man," she said. Rosa, always observant. "I am happy for you, dear Patricia," she smiled, feeling her grandmother's support as a blessing. Pedro and Patricia decided to take a step forward in their relationship. "Do you want to marry me?" Pedro asked, holding Patricia's hand with a sparkle in Patricia's eyes. Felt her heart race. "Yes, Pedro, I want," she responded excitedly. The wedding was planned with care, involving Rosa in every detail. "I want you to feel part of this, grandmother," said Patricia while they were choosing the flowers. "Of course, dear," Rosa responded with eyes full of pride. The wedding day arrived, and the ceremony was simple but full of love. Rosa was in the front row with tears in her eyes. "I am so proud of you," Patricia thought as she watched her granddaughter walk towards the altar. Pedro looked at Patricia with love and admiration as she approached. "I am ready to start this new life with you," thought Pedro, feeling the emotion of the moment. During the reception, Rosa made a short speech exciting everyone. "Pedro, welcome to our family." "Patricia, I am very happy for you," he said with a broken voice. "You will always have my love and my support." He approached his grandmother, hugging her tightly. "Thank you, grandmother," he whispered, feeling blessed to have her in his life. Married life brought a new dynamic for Patricia. "I have never felt so complete," I thought while I was fixing up the new house with Pedro. They kept Rosa always close, visiting her regularly and making sure she never felt alone. "You are part of our life, grandmother," Patricia said while helping Rosa take care of the garden. Rosa, she felt fulfilled seeing her granddaughter's happiness. Pedro showed himself to be a dedicated and loving husband. "I am happy that we found each other," he told Patricia in quiet moments. He always planned the future with enthusiasm. "Considering Rosa, we will make sure that she has everything she needs," agreed Pedro, and Patricia's constant presence brought joy and security to Rosa. 2 years had passed since Patricia and Pedro's wedding, and life had been generous to them. Patricia was pregnant, and the news she had filled the house with joy. "Pedro, we are going to have a baby," she said with tears of happiness shining in her eyes. Pedro hugged her tightly, feeling like the luckiest man in the world. "I am so happy, Patricia," he responded with his voice broken with emotion. "Our son is going to be very loved during the pregnancy." Rosa was present at every moment. "Grandmother, what do you think of this name?" Patricia asked while they were discussing possibilities for the baby. Rosa smiled, feeling involved and important. Lucas is a beautiful name, dear, she said, caressing the belly. Patricia will bring a lot of light to our lives. Patricia agreed, feeling the warmth of family love. The day Lucas was born arrived, and the family was gathered at the hospital. Anxiously waiting, everything is going to be okay, Patricia thought, feeling confident with Pedro by her side. When Lucas was finally born, the baby's cry filled the room, bringing tears to everyone's eyes. It's perfect, said Pedro, looking at his son with admiration. Our little miracle, Rosa, holding Lucas for the first time, felt a wave of happiness that he had never experienced. My great-grandson murmured with tears running down his face. You are the joy of our family. Lucas. Patricia watched the scene with a smile. Feeling complete, Grandma, she is lucky to have you, she said excitedly. Rosa just nodded, unable to contain her joy. The first months of Lucas' life were full of discoveries and precious moments. They are ready, Pedro said, marveling at each new development of his son. Patricia felt fulfilled taking care of him. Lucas, with all the love that I had learned from Rosa, I want to be the best mother I can, I thought. Watching Lucas sleep, just as you were for me, Grandma Rosa spent hours with Lucas in her arms singing lullabies. Telling stories. You will grow up surrounded by love, my little one, she promised, feeling rejuvenated by the presence of her great-grandson. I will be here to see each of your steps. Lucas, with his bright eyes, seemed to understand every word, bringing renewed joy and hope to Rosa. Patricia and Pedro were delighted. With each new moment of Lucas, he is our greatest joy, Patricia said while Pedro rocked Lucas. In his arms, the house was always full of laughter and love, reflecting the happiness that Lucas had brought. We are building something beautiful. Here, Pedro thought, feeling grateful for his family. I feel blessed to be so involved, Rosa said, appreciating every moment with Lucas. Patricia felt grateful for her grandmother's constant presence. You are our grandmother, Pilar, she said, always valuing Rosa's support and love. The first Lucas's birthday was a celebration full of joy and laughter. He's growing so fast, Pedro observed as Rosa helped decorate the cake. Patricia felt a wave of emotion when she saw her family reunited. Everyone sharing the happiness of the moment. This is just the beginning of many celebrations, I thought, looking at Lucas with love. At the end of the party, Rosa held Lucas in her arms, feeling happier than ever. You have brought a new light to our lives, my great-grandson whispered as Lucas he played with his fingers. Thank you for this joy. Patricia watched the scene with tears in her eyes, feeling deeply blessed. Our family is complete, she thought with a heart full of gratitude and love. Meanwhile, Leopoldo and his children knew they would never be able to erase the past. We have to live with the consequences of our actions, thought Leopoldo. Resigned, but they continued trying to find ways to help other prisoners, trying to make some difference. At least we can try to leave something good, they said in their meetings. It was a long road and arduous, but a necessary step to try to find some kind of peace. After serving their sentences, they decided that the only way to move forward was to seek forgiveness from Rosa and Patricia. We need to do this, he said. Leopoldo, feeling the weight of guilt, owes them an apology to his children. His children agreed, aware that this was the only way to try to find some kind of inner peace. Patricia was at home with Rosa when the doorbell rang. She opened the door and left. She met Leopoldo and his children. What are you doing here? She asked, surprised and tense. Leopoldo, with his eyes full of regret, responded, We have come to ask for forgiveness. Patricia felt a wave of mixed emotions, but decided to listen to what they had to say. Say, come in, he said with a hesitant voice. Rosa was sitting in the living room when they entered. Mother Leopoldo began with a broken voice. We came to ask for forgiveness for all the damage we caused. Rosa looked at them, her heart heavy with years of pain and betrayal. Leopoldo's children, seeing the pain in Rosa's eyes, made them feel even more regretful. We just wanted to follow our father, but we realized how much we were wrong, said the oldest with tears in his eyes. Patricia, feeling the internal conflict, looked at her grandmother. Grandma, what do you want to do? She asked, wanting to respect Rosa's feelings. Rosa took a deep breath. The silence in the room was palpable. I forgive them, she finally said with a trembling voice. I don't hold any grudges in my heart, but I can't forget what they did. Patricia looked at her grandmother with admiration. Me too. I forgive you, she said firmly, but we cannot go back to what we were before. Everyone must go on with their lives. Leopoldo and his children nodded, understanding Rosa and Patricia's decision. Forgive us, Leopoldo said, his voice full of gratitude. We want to cause more pain. We will continue our lives respecting your wish. Patricia felt a sense of relief and closure. I wish you the best, she said sincerely, but this is the end of our contact. As we left, Leopoldo looked back one last time, feeling a mixture of sadness and relief. They forgave us, he thought with a sigh. Now we have to rebuild our lives away from them. The children agreed, ready to begin a new stage. We are going to honor this. Forgiveness, the youngest promised, determined to do better. Rosa and Patricia. They were silent for a moment after his departure. Was it the right thing to do? Grandma asked Patricia, seeking confirmation. Rosa smiled softly with her eyes still shining with tears. Yes, dear, forgiveness is powerful, but it does not mean forgetting. We did what our hearts asked. Pedro entered the room carrying Lucas in her arms. Is everything okay? She asked, sensing the tension in the air. Patricia smiled, feeling a wave of peace. Yes, Pedro, everything is as it should be. She looked at Lucas, who was smiling innocently, and felt hope. For the future, our family is safe and united. That is what matters. The days that followed were of reflection and renewal. Patricia, they felt lighter knowing that they had forgiven, but also established healthy boundaries. Forgiveness is liberating, Patricia thought as she played with Lucas in the garden. But it is important to protect what we have built. Leopoldo and his children continued with their lives, carrying the weight of their mistakes, but also the opportunity for redemption. We have a second chance, Leopoldo said to his children. Feeling grateful for the forgiveness they received, we are going to take advantage of it. They knew that the road would be difficult, but they were determined to honor Rosa and Patricia's forgiveness. Rosa, watching Lucas play, felt at peace. We went through so many things, she reflected, feeling the heat of the sun on her face, but we are here together and strong. Patricia sat next to her grandmother, holding her hand. We will continue forward, grandmother, together, she always said with a smile, and so with love and resilience they continued to build their lives. Knowing that they had made peace with the past and were ready for a bright future. If you like this story, I ask you to like and subscribe to the channel. This helps me continue sharing amazing stories every day. Don't miss the next story, surprising that it now appears on your screen. Thank you very much for your support. See you soon.